This is going to be slightly different from usual, a little bit self-indulgent. I refer at length to my time in a traffic office in a haulage company in Buckinghamshire. This was after I left Cave Woods and a year or two after I came off the road in Haulage in Manchester. Anyway, the point of all this will be to explain, all seemingly indirectly, but not so, because actually it's quite relevant, this strange oddness that ideological politics nearly always ends in tears and waste. So here we go. Ideologues cause inhumanity and waste. Labour and Tory control freaks don't seem to be able to handle tactics. Ideology fixates on strategy, thinking it can dispense with tactics. Anyone with a modicum of management experience will know of inevitability of events upsetting a plan, insisting it must be followed to the letter, ignoring unforeseen circumstances. Good management recognises the crucial importance of tactics and that failure to allow for insignificant, sometimes tiny detail can destroy otherwise successful grand plans. A piece of grit can bring a gigantic machine to halt, as surely as if someone had thrown a spanner in the works. Where most detail might be insignificant, some can be crucial. Tactics are more concerned with detail. Cue a dull story about what I learnt in road haulage in the late 70s and early 80s. Although much has changed, many fundamentals remain. Please be patient. It helps understand why ideological politics almost always ends badly and in tears. The heart of a haulage spot traffic operation is the traffic desk. Traffic operators do work that's normally beyond the ken of accountants and sadly most senior management, particularly those who've never been there. The business normally takes transport orders at 1 or 2 days' notice, some only arriving the evening before, with a few on the day itself. Driver and lorry allocation can be complex. Late the previous day, AM work is planned and sometimes the night trunk might arrive with a different load than that expected, involving last-minute changes in the early morning. At this stage, PM work is still up in the air, meaning there's no plan yet. If all drivers were allocated PM work before AM work was completed, the danger is that any AM problems will mess up the PM plan. Drivers loathe changes in instructions when they've had their work in their heads, particularly when they have to do unnecessary detours, wasting time because of an office blunder. I have in here a picture of a traffic office from 1974, which is very much like the office I worked from in the early 80s. It brought back quite a few memories when I saw it. At about 3:30 p.m, most spot traffic operations will have covered the day's work and will be taking orders for the next day to add to those received before. A good traffic operator will be dealing with the plan for today, keeping in mind demand for tomorrow, and will understand that, although things might look impossible in the morning, they nearly always work out by close of business. People used to the idea that a plan can run tram lines through uncertainties such as breakdowns, traffic jams, difficult loading and unloading, driver issues, emergency customer requests, filthy weather, etc., seem to think technology or systems can remove the crucial need for competent tactical management. A good manager, faced by what looks like a serious problem, will prepare for the worst, meanwhile aware that change can as much go for as against him. Midday, in a spot traffic office, To the uninformed, a loads covered list can look like things are going very wrong. On my first day learning traffic, with a sense of panic, I asked a time service operator who controlled 30 to 40 articulated lorries. That's far more than the average, but he managed to do it. What would we do if we failed to cover every load? Pencil on ear, he turned to me and said, "Don't worry, it'll work out." Sure enough, it did. At close of business, the traffic sheet, smudged by crossings out and arrows here and there indicating change in allocation or covering last-minute loads, complete with stains from mugs of tea, looked like a chaotic mess to the eye of an accountant because it was a record of a successful day's work. There was no grand plan at the start, only a bit of one. But by the end it was possible to retrospectively produce a plan of what would have been successful were it possible to predict the future. Of course, all those unforeseen aspects mentioned in the previous paragraph were very relevant. Amazed that this old fellow with a bit of paper, pencil and rubber seemed to do the impossible, I asked him how he managed to do it. His reply, to someone who's never worked traffic, might have seemed a typical example of job protection when he said, "I don't really know." Later, when I had the skill, another trainee asked me the same thing. Without the luxury of time to understand sufficiently to write this homily, my reply, pencil and ear, echoed what I had heard on my first day. It is hugely satisfying to appear to do the impossible with up to 30 or 40 lorries, despite the lack of appreciation from many in senior management. Good traffic operators are often grossly undervalued. Running 40 Arctics at an average cost of £190,000 a year comes to about £7.6 million per annum, but they are often paid little more than a high-quality driver. A good operator can reduce the need by at least 2 Arctics, alternatively increase capacity to take on more business. In the early 80s, computers were supposed to de-skill or, ideally, abolish the traffic office. Typically they were sold to management who did not know what the traffic desk did beyond covering the work. Nearly all early attempts at computerized spot traffic ended in abject failure. Ignorance about the management of time was common. The transport product is time-based. The more efficient and responsive, the more productive an operation becomes. All vehicles working to their maximum capacities most efficiently, thanks to the ability to deal with unknown factors, ensures high productivity. Too often, management trained on production models, assuming physical things, do not understand a physically unascertainable product or appreciate that transport is part of producing products, literally, for customers. Consequently, their appreciation of tactical management in this sector is virtually nil. Despite modern technology, vehicle tracking, etc., spot traffic operators are still necessary. The dream of getting rid of the need for daily management through the chaos of unforeseeable circumstances using miraculous flashing lights was a delusion. Humans can engage with uncertainty by suspending plans and immediate action until circumstances permit further planning to reach the objective. The logic of a machine that cannot accommodate a wait-and-see tactical approach, instead spitting out a plan based on the current situation, is highly likely to fail as events unfold. The don't panic, wait and see approach was, and I guess still is, essential in spot traffic haulage. This long and somewhat weary story demonstrates the need for flexibility to make plans work. At a tactical level, the imposition of tramline thinking in an environment subject to unforeseen circumstances ignores the need for an on-the-hop detailed decision-making, to reach larger strategic objectives. Ideology is obsessed with planning and can't accommodate tactics because a good tactical decision-making is beyond ideological prescription. This is the core reason why ideological governments, communist, socialist, centrist, conservative, fascists, or even Nazi, in other words anyone on the political spectrum, along with theocratic and other authoritarian regimes, end in waste and mismanagement, along with oppressed and miserable populations. Here I have a picture of Keir Starmer. You will see it in the transcript. It's entitled "The Prime Minister of a Badly Run Government in 2026. A heartless ideologue. The only system that best engages with uncertainty and change, with sufficient flexibility to ensure plans work while allowing for tactics to best handle uncertainty, is democracy. The rest are utopian and grand plan fixated, where democracy exists to find out what is best to do in the circumstances. It avoids tramline planning and its delusion that you can successfully remove the need for good management by replacing it with bureaucracy, whose only duty is to enforce prescription while ignoring the need to engage with uncertainty at the heart of tactical planning. Evidence of reality messing up the objective of ideological planners is equally ignored and often cloaked by allegations of wrecking, blaming sections of the population. It's a really nasty scene. This previous paragraph, I think, is very important. There you have it. The reason why socialism, or most political ideologies let rip, lead to waste, mismanagement, and cruel inhumanity. The fate of Henry Noack and the shocking attitude of the woke UK establishment are warnings that we cannot afford to ignore. Ideology and its servants, ideologues, are the greatest enemy of humanity. Thanks for listening. It was strange revisiting my past, particularly finding that photograph, which is a typical traffic office of the time. They disappeared, I think, late 80s, possibly even mid-90s. But even now you see, when I visit haulage companies, which is rare, you sometimes see traffic operators coming out with a sort of pallor. You might call it poverty pallor. The snobs would call it council house pallor. The stress of that job is phenomenal, and really good operators tend to suffer from it more than others. But as in many sectors of industry and commerce and the public sector, there are greatly undervalued people who often carry large numbers of people who need to be pulled up rather sharply. And it's a cost to them and to us, but at least they should be recognised. Anyway, thanks again. It's on to the next one.